wanted to walk everybody through kind of how we do feature matching and how we even kind of think about it. So we're going to talk about the set process, which we've talked about before. That's the student, the environment, the task, and the tools. And we have a link in here, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Really, you want to write everything down. I used to put all of this on huge chart paper when I was doing this, or putting it on a whiteboard, whatever it happens to be. So on the left-hand side, we've got skills or needs of the student, strengths and the weaknesses. So you're going to want to think about those things. So what is it? What's the difficulty that we're dealing with? Difficulty using a pencil or filling in a worksheet, staying on lines, loses the paper. Difficulty with pushing a pencil. Well, that tells me there's some fine motor issues that are going on. The student fatigues quickly. And you can do this with a group very quickly and very easily. We just kind of start throwing things out and somebody just writes them all down. So we have those kind of things. So before we get to the right side, let's keep going down the left side here. We also said, hey, the student, they can use a standard keyboard on a Chromebook. That's really good. But they only type 5 words a minute. And they're not a 10-finger typer. So that tells me even more information. The next one, he enjoys telling stories with his voice and he has a good, clear voice. That is essential when we're talking about what kind of tools we might be looking at. But he has some difficulties with spelling and grammar. Oh, okay. That tells me more information. So then we talk about what features might help us get through some of these things. So if he has difficulty with paper pencil, maybe keeping everything digital, using some sort of digital worksheet kind of a thing. And again, at this point, you don't need to know the answers. Everybody's like, well, what's that thing called? And it's like, nope, we're not talking about what that thing is called at this point. We're just talking about what are the features that we need to go through this. What does that kid need to do? It's better if he has it computer based versus if it's on a piece of paper, because he's having trouble with fatigue. And a lot of you have heard me say this before, is that I always talk about you only have so much gas in the tank. Our kids only have so much energy all day long. And if they have to use all that energy to hold that pencil and to fill in the blank or to press down on that paper, whatever, then they're not going to have enough cognition later to be able to do the learning that we need them to do. So think about those. So we said he could use a standard keyboard. That's good, but they only do 5 words a minute. So what kind of features might speed that process up? So think about word prediction or word banks. Those things might help, because we're doing less keystrokes. And even if you write that, if you don't know word prediction, you just might write less keystrokes. That's what he needs. And then he does like to tell stories. So maybe that voice to text is going to be something. And he has a clear voice. That really helps us too. And then the last one down there, he's having some trouble with grammar. Okay, so maybe we need something like that have grammar features in it. Maybe some drag and drop, maybe some sentence starters, whatever it happens to be. So see how we kind of go through this? We're looking at the needs and the skills and what kind of features might fill in that blank. So now, once you finish that, then so you've done your original problem solving. So now we've got to talk about trials and data collection. And I know this is like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to do this, but you really do need to do it. It's like anything else. We have to make sure it's right. So how do we do these things? We said something needed to be computer based. How do I get some of that stuff? If you've never used our AT for All lending library, that's one way you can get some of these things. You can borrow from the lending library. Maybe you want to borrow a different keyboard. Maybe we'll get down to that. I don't know. We don't know yet because we're in the trial and data collection stage. If you've never used the Denise DeCoste writing protocol, because we don't know yet what is the best access method for him. This is a great assessment tool. I don't know if you've ever used this one, Anna, but I love it. You've used it? Great. I did link it in here. It is now free. So free is always really good, you guys. So all you have to do is fill out this form that they have down here in the bottom, and you can get the Denise DeCoste writing protocol for free. And what that will do for you and your student, to my presentation here, it will allow you to look and do your data collection. So it's going to ask you, how does a student write? And you're going to get some writing samples. You're going to go through and try word prediction and see how they do with that, and it's going to see based then what is the output method. Are we looking to, we said he could only do 5 words per minute. We want to do better than that, and we want to keep that fatigue down. So how do we go through that? And it's going to look at then writing samples with technology, without technology, using different tools, and let's find out which one is the best. It is a great way then for you to go into an IEP meeting and say, look, we did this, the East Coast Writing Protocol, and you can show each and every one of these data fields and points. Maybe we're going to do a trial with word prediction, and maybe at this time we're going to say, well, let's try co-writer and see, because they did say that the student is having some trouble with spelling, and co-writer does happen to be one of those really good programs that if you are very phonetic, like I am, it is a great assistance for spelling. You can spell elephant with an L and it's going to kick it out with an E. It's awesome. Maybe we still need to, we're always looking at the least kind of intrinsic or not intrinsic, least intrusive kind of tool that we might want for our student. So maybe it is a pencil grip. Maybe they just need to be able to hold better on that pencil, or maybe it's changing the pencil to a marker. This is where your OTs are going to come in handy too. Remember, this is not a I person. This is a team effort every single time. And I also did link in here your set forms so that you can go and take a look at those, because maybe we need to go back and revisit that. This is never a one and done kind of a thing. Yeah, right. People were like, well, I already did it. Well, yeah, but it's not done.
Kathy, I was just going to add in a little humor from Amy Snow here. She just shared a picture of a t-shirt that says, without data, you're just another person with an opinion.
But
I like it,
Iris
Amy.
Jacobson always says that thinking is required, right? Always, you got to think through there. So now that you've done that, and you probably can't see this because this is all in the way. What's next? We start to look at products, more trials, more data collection, and oh my gosh, you're going to progress monitor and listen to your student. Above all, listen to your student. Remember in the beginning, we talked about that there's that abandonment. But sometimes, it's the device is too big, or the device is the wrong color, or maybe it isn't the best for the student. Yeah, word prediction may work well for them, but you know what? Maybe he prefers to use his voice, and we have to listen to those students to figure out those things. And you can have more than one thing in an IEP. I think people forget that too. They're like, well, we decided he only needed whatever it happens to be. And I'm like, but they may need something else too. And what works in one situation might not work in another.
And that's a good reminder of thinking about that environment, right? Certain environments at school, a student might need one tool, and certain environments, another tool. We know voice typing isn't always great in a general education classroom. It might be better in the library or in a smaller setting. So, really thinking about those features and those specific environments, they might be different tools in different environments at school.
And then again, go back to that data and progress monitor. Maybe when he's learning something, he or she is learning something new, like a very high tech kind of thing, like science or social studies, that maybe in those situations, he really needs those word banks and he does very well with it. But then in English or literature class, like Anna said, maybe that's the time to use voice to text, because we can split the group up or put them in, some can go in the hallway or whatever. So you just want to kind of walk your way through this process. And again, I can't stress this enough, that progress monitoring is essential. See how they're doing. And if you've never used like readability statistics, that's a great way when you're doing writing, because you can get a grade level for your work. So you have the student copy their work and paste it into a readability stat, and it'll say second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and keep that data and then go back. So then with word prediction, we can go from second grade work to sixth grade work. Hey, that's a huge jump. and show that to your student. I never did understand why people didn't want to show data to kids. Kids are part of their IEP too, so you might want to have them there too, so that everyone is a part of this process.
All right, so now we're going to just look at, we talked about a little bit before about smart TVs. So now looking at a Chromebook, we want you just in the chat to look at this Chromebook and talk about what are some of the features that would be on this Chromebook. Just start listing them in the chat. Or if you want to unmute yourself and share it, you're welcome to do that too.
Oh, good one. External mouse. Yeah.
Screen size. I always like to remind
Trackpads
people.
are hard for kids.
Yes. Oh, it's hard for me at times too. I always hit the trackpad with when I'm on the keyboard. So sometimes I have to turn my trackpad off. So I like to remind people when they're looking at this, thinking about adjectives to describe the Chromebook. What are the adjectives that you can use to describe this? And those are really your figuring out your features. What are those features that this tool has? Method of login. I love that. Liz, I'm guessing you're referring to the fact that some students can use QR codes now to log in versus passwords, different sizes using their voice commands on Google. Love it, Liz. Great job. Maybe it's just the keyboard access, right? Smaller keyboard size than maybe a larger keyboard with a number pad on the side. Maybe that's a touch screen.
And the weight of the device is always important to look at.
I like the tenting features for some students. Sometimes the tenting feature and getting that keyboard out of the way completely can be helpful.
Has camera.
Yes. And that's kind of what Liz was referring to, using that QR code with that camera to log in. So the students, it's almost like using your face to log in on your iPhone if you have an iPhone, right? It's a smart device now. And again, those built-ins, the grammar supports, the displays, the screen size, the mouse supports. And then going into Google features, right? What are Google features that are accessible on here as well? Word shortcuts and shortcut keys. Yes. I have my favorite shortcut keys for sure.
Sticky keys.
Yes. I don't know if somebody unmuted and they were going to share something. All right. Oh, low vision supports within Google settings. Yes. The built-ins, I think people sometimes forget there's so many awesome built-ins that are on a Chromebook as well. On-screen keyboard can be on there as well. So if you do the tenting option and you have the on-screen keyboard, talk to text and text to speech. Yes. So you're all talking about features of this tool. Nobody said HP, right? Nobody said it was an HP Chromebook, right? The student needs an HP Chromebook. We all talked about the features that could be used or needed by the student. So I also like to point out that what is the user's need versus a benefit for a user? So we know that there can be, I know for an example for myself, right? I use my mobile, my Chromebook and I take it with me places. I use it everywhere. Does it become a need or is it just a benefit to me? Could I still be able to access that computer if I go to the library and use a computer there? Maybe. But what are the features or those tools that the student needs to have on them in different environments where that tool might not exist? So when you figure out those features that a student really needs, you need to determine whether or not a device might a separate device or a different tool would be needed in order to make sure that those features are available to that student. Oh, somebody asked, what is a
Hey, Anna
tenting
Maria,
feature?
Yep.
Is that what you had? Okay, sorry, Kathy. Yep. So the tenting feature is just when you can flip the whole screen over and it basically looks like a tent. So you have the screen on one side and a keyboard kind of goes like that. So it basically sets it up so it's almost like a natural slanted surface for the screen. Oh, so Liz answered that too. Thank you, Liz. So the screen on some devices can rotate 360. Yes. Not all devices have it, but some do.
So does that make sense when we're talking about what does the user's need versus the user benefit? And what is a need versus, what absolutely has to happen for that student? Does that kind of hopefully make sense to everybody? All right. So one of the things that we created for you, and I'm just going to close the chat out. So Anne, if you can keep an eye on that for me, is one of the things we've done at the AT Forward project is we've created some things called feature matching, and they are designed so that you can take these with you to an IEP. Okay, and you can kind of it's not meant to be the only document that you use or the only thing that you use. It is just meant to help with conversations. And again, we all don't know everything, so we have to know kind of where to start. So we're going to talk about this one. This is one of the ones we've created for transition. And we're still working on some of these. These are all living documents. We're adding some stuff to this one also at this point in time. But here's the transition one. And I really want you to kind of all, and let me make this bigger so we can all see this. Control plus plus if you don't know that feature. So they all start on kind of the same kind of a thing. So are there resources in place to provide support to individuals with disabilities after high school? So what are you looking at? So it's the area of concern and then the potential feature match. And those are on the right-hand side. So as you go down here, there are different features that we kind of threw in here. And yeah, there's also, I forgot to throw this in and I'm going to do it right away so I don't forget, is always check with your IT department. Just because something we might suggest, we're saying to consider it. I'm not saying that you have to use it. We're just saying consider. These are the features of some of these programs because not everybody knows everything, right? We all have to share in this knowledge and learning. But make sure that everything has been vetted by your school district so you can walk through that. Let me scroll down here a little bit. So are there accessible supports in place to assist with managing time or time-related concepts? Let's think about that as our students transition from high school to the world of work or to school. You got to be on time, right? You've got to be able to use a calendar, all of those things. And so what kind of things might help you out with that? So then we've listed some things. And we didn't necessarily say, hey, you got to use this one, but we're giving you some examples of the features. Consider using a phone. Consider using a Google Calendar. Also thinking about sticky notes. Sometimes it's those little things that can make a huge difference too. And then we just listed a few in there. Are there accessible supports in place to assist with independence in using that technology? Do your students know how to use their tech when they leave? This is essential. And because if they don't know how to use it, I'm not going to college with you. I've already done that. I did my part. It's your turn to be as independent as possible. So think about those kind of things. Did you picture out directions for them? Did you step things out? So these are so that you are considering what's going on in that IEP. Are there accessible supports in place to assist with acquiring that equipment so that it belongs to the student? Because remember, they're going to leave you, once they leave you, did you think about that? Things like the TEP program, where you can, for $100, get communication devices for kids. So we've kind of just put these in here. And again, they are starting points. They are not the end all, and they're just trying to help you consider things. When you're talking about accessible educational materials, that you can get an individual account for kids. So when they leave you, they can continue to get these things. So just remember always, AT Forward, looking forward, always look to the future. And that's where these things are so important. So we're just gonna, we gave these to you so that you can take a look at them. And feel free to write in and change things as they look for your district. So that's the transition one that we're in. Again, we're working on another couple of pages for that. Here's one that we've looked at for early childhood because, you know, we've got feature matching going on there too. Get that bigger again. So here you go. Are there accessible supports in place to manage activities of daily living? Have you considered something like a pod book, very low tech kind of a thing, aided in language development? Did you consider picture schedules? You know, and we did, you know, kind of link a lot of these things in here just to get you thinking on more things. Polydots, you know, that is a brand name, but you know, it could be, you know, for just it's a visual when lining up. It could be anything, but you know, maybe think about it. Even though we said polydots, it doesn't mean that you'd have to use that. Maybe you're going to put a lion, a tiger, and an elephant on the floor, you know, and your student stands on the elephant, you know, whatever it happens to be. Are there accessible supports in place to assist with time management? So you can kind of go through here and see that we tried to ask the question, and you notice there's a third column off to the left. You can kind of use this, print it, check the box. Because then too, you have documentation that says you did in fact consider assistive technology when you were sitting at that IEP. And it may help a parent too think about things that maybe they never thought about before. A check-in, check-out system. Uh, you know, are they learning new vocabulary? Thinking about things like open dyslexic font. So we put those in there. You can take a look at them. The last one I wanted to show you really quick are, you know, for AAC, because this is another huge area when you're talking about feature matching. And again, remember, it's not only just what the device is doing as far as the output, but how is the student accessing the device? It's the input method. Are they a switch user? Do they understand symbolic representation? Can they understand the auditory output of that device? So all of these things kind of have to be in place. Did you consider high contrast? And did you then take data on all those things? Because remember, progress monitoring and data collection are huge. We kind of went over that, but I always want to return to those things because people forget. Are there accessible supports in place with vision? You know, let's consider those high contrast things. And see, I didn't say a specific thing. Let's just do high contrast. So we tried to give you lots of different ways, other accessible supports in place with access. Consider the number of icons. Consider, is he direct select? Are they actually touching it? Are they a single switch scanner? Eye gaze? You know, what does it happen to be? So again, remember to look in your schools and talk to your IT departments and make sure that everything that you're using has been vetted by them. And these are starting points. You know, thinking is required. We're just giving you a way to start the process.
Kathy, I was just going to
Oh,
mention too. Oh, I was just going to mention when you were talking about some of those resources and talking with your tech people in your district. I remember consulting with a district recently, and one thing that we found really helpful was just being an outsider. I was like, do you have a tech person that I can talk with? And we ended up meeting with the tech person, and they gave us a giant list of all of the extensions that they've approved in the district, the types of devices they have access to, the ones that they've approved. So it was just really nice for us to go through and say, okay, teachers are using this device, but you know, they do have access to a couple of these extra ones, and it has a few more features that we might need for a student. So really building those relationships with your tech department will really help you figure out what tools and features are available for a wider range of people within your district. Because it is surprising sometimes that everyone's kind of in their roles doing their jobs, and they don't always think that everyone else might be benefit from knowing all these resources. So really having those conversations is just a good starting point.
Absolutely. Thanks for that reminder. I'm not going to go through this one, but I've linked in here the one for executive functioning. And we also have, you know, on our AT Forward web page, the executive functioning webinars that we've done have been very, very popular. So remember, we have those resources too. But we did want to take a minute to talk about documenting those features in an IEP.